Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of our podcast. And today, in the Business Growth Titans, we have Megan Anderson. Welcome, Megan. How are
Hi,
you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing today?
I'm doing perfect. The sun is shining, and I'm really glad that I can go outside and have a run. I just went for a run actually, and it's great to do that even in these difficult times, where you don't have anything else to do actually. But I'm glad I can do that. So,
That's nice.
introduce yourself first to our audience. And Megan, you describe yourself. Let me just like take a look at how you describe yourself. You say from yourself that first of all, you're the founder of Dulci Digital, right?
Mhm.
Marketing agency, and but you call yourself a digital marketing dinosaur.
I do. So I
Why?
really do that because I have been doing this for over 15 years,
Mm,
really since the MySpace days. That's kind of where that comes from. My first marketing campaign ever was there. And that's not something that a lot of the newer kids on the block can ever say.
so how did you roll into marketing on MySpace?
Yeah, so back then it was actually for an e-commerce store that I started. It was my first journey in entrepreneurship, and I sold like fan T-shirts for Twilight the series actually,
Really?
and really had a lot of success. In fact, that really put the down payment on my first house out of college, our success with that e-com store. So that was a pretty interesting start to my journey and how I began on MySpace.
So would you also say that the strategies that you used back then are pretty much the same still, like deep down in a foundational way?
I think, yeah, in some ways, marketing is timeless in that it's about connections and that human touch, really reaching your customer and understanding them, and then delivering value. I don't think that changes. The
Mm,
methods change, the channels change, and the strategies change. But the core foundation of what it is to market effectively, I think, is pretty much the same as it's always been. And I believe that that's something that we've kind of lost touch with a little bit in the age of automation. And that's one of the things that we really try to do is continue to humanize the experience through digital channels. Because a lot of people, I think, just automate to the point that it's not got that human heartfelt touch anymore. And
mm.
I think that that's one of the things that kind of sets us apart is that we really still focus on building those relationships as the priority.
Yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned that because I just got off a phone call with another agency owner, and he literally said, like, I just stopped doing all of the automation, not because it's not valuable, I would say, but because he loses that personal touch.
Mhm.
And these days, where everybody's just using those kind of automations to reach out to people for marketing, for sales, it's getting like annoying even for a lot of people to
Mhm.
do it that way, or to get all those kind of like not personal, like impersonal messages, and doing an outreach in a personal way through video messages or through just voice messages
Mhm.
is so much more valuable. I do this as well, and the reactions that I get from that are amazing. People really are glad that they can see a real person on the other end, even from
Right.
an outreach message. So yeah,
Exactly.
so and the other agency owner as well, he said as well, like I just do personal outreach right now. Okay, it takes a little bit more time, of course, and in a grand scale, like scalable, not really, of course, unless you have a team that can do this for you as well. But in the end, the person on the other side needs to feel that he's talking to a person, not
Right.
to a robot, right?
I
So
agree.
yeah. How did it feel like back in the time when it was MySpace still? Like, what kind of marketing really worked back then? Like, what did you do, and what can you
Sure.
transition over? What can you now transition over to the current world?
Yeah, so I think that word of mouth is always going to be powerful. It is today as well. But back then it was really huge. The other thing is that organic sharing was so much more popular and viable. We've had a lot of shifts in the way that social media and even Google and other search engines are delivering organic content today. The reach that you had, for example, on MySpace was much less restricted in terms of your organic reach. So you could really get some, big momentum going with people sharing and building that for you through word of mouth. And we really utilized a lot of organic campaigns there. And realistically now, I feel like most businesses struggle with their organic reach on social channels compared to what it was even just a couple of years ago. Basically because of those algorithm changes. And I think that it's really, had this impact of shifting people into more paid ads and in those kind of promotion strategies to really increase that reach on those kind of channels. But ultimately, I think at the end of the day, the human aspect, and depending on your needs, it's going to impact the channels that you use. If you're someone who is working with B2B, those really direct outreaches and building relationships and networking on LinkedIn is going to be ideal for you. Versus if you're a retail brand who is really image heavy, has lots of content you can share that pops out to show off your products, that's going to be like Instagram, Facebook, and those kind of channels for you. And really the strategy just depends on not only the kind of business that you have, but really the goals that you have for those campaigns. So we take into account all those kinds of aspects whenever we're building out campaigns for our clients through our discovery process before we start.
Yeah, and the thing that you mentioned there is strategy and building your process around that strategy.
Mm-hmm.
And you've been into the marketing space for so many years now, and you also talked to me about like that you have been in every possible position that you can imagine within marketing.
Right.
And so you are like the best person to talk about what a company really needs to make sure that their marketing strategy is on point, but also how you can define a process around that strategy.
Right.
So for you, what would you advise a company that's thinking about, we need these channels, we need to do outreach, and we know which channels maybe, but what is really the strategy to do effective outreach and to do predictable things that can get us those leads or get us that engagement? What do you advise to companies?
Sure. So one of the first things is that you really can't underestimate the value of your data and market research. So the better you know your customer, the better you know your competition in your market, the better you're going to be able to position yourself and your products or services. I think it's really, really essential that so many companies, especially in this day and age, to stay competitive, you have people in the industry, key players that are definitely utilizing their data and optimizing their processes, A/B testing to see what works and what doesn't, to continue to improve that performance over time. And I think that people have to get really serious about the fact that there are a lot more sophistication. There's a lot more sophistication in the market today in terms of established players. So if you're, say, a startup in the game, you really need to come out with a digital first mindset. I think that even more so post-COVID, the shifts in consumer behavior is really going to keep pushing things that way. People expect a convenient buying process today. People are also a lot more self-led. So we talked about this a little bit earlier with the automations. And on one hand, it can be really nice to streamline processes that are very basic. Like, people don't mind an email when they're onboarding that is the email that says, here's the guide to get started, or here's this resource library. But when it comes to, like, say, the welcome email, that would be great to come from someone personally. I think trying to find ways to balance that approach of scalability and still being personal is really, really key to setting yourself apart in the current dynamics. I also really believe that establishing the channels goes back to the research. So a lot of people just make assumptions that, oh, the most popular channel is going to be the best channel for me. But really, you want to dig into those demographics and truly see, does that align with your audience? I think that one of the key things that we do as an agency is help build buyer personas for segmentation. So when we say we want to know your customer, we really want to know them as deeply as we possibly can. The more that we understand the customer, their needs and their challenges, the better we're going to be able to position the marketing and the messaging and branding to reach them in a way that connects and that is relevant. So that's really the key for me, is that what I see often is that the two areas people seem to be challenged most with are really doing the market research and defining that audience clearly, and then also developing a streamlined process after the fact with proper planning. So we see a lot of times like campaigns will be challenging for them to get off, like the plate on time. And some of that comes back just to the processes that they have in place. So whenever you can, work with your team internally and work out those alignment issues, really kind of dig into the root causes that might be causing things to slow down for you. That's going to be a huge part of optimizing that process. And a lot of people skip that. I think that a lot of people get so busy that they end up letting problems kind of snowball down the road. So one of the things that we really encourage whenever we start working with someone is a full SWOT analysis. So we really come in and we want to look at the strengths and weaknesses, the opportunities and threats to their company, and really look at that internally and externally so that we can form a strategy around all these different pieces. And I think that that's one of the areas that our customers really, really appreciate us, because we're going to be able to bring some insight that they may just be missing internally. And so that's what I would really suggest, is just digging into that data, getting to know that customer, and then really thinking about continual improvement with A/B testing and optimization. It's amazing what small things can change the outcomes. So for example, just changing a call to action can have a huge impact on conversions sometimes. It really just depends on what your audience is responding to, but you can't learn that unless you're testing.
So Megan, are you saying that companies shouldn't expect that if they just put a post on Facebook that customers will just come to them like that?
That's exactly what I'm saying.
That's the thing, right? Putting that process into place after you do the strategy and after you design your campaign, you know what you want to post, you know how it will look like. That's the first piece, of course. But what about all the stuff that's coming behind that? What about the follow-up? What about the nurturing? What kind of process do you have in place? And I agree with you completely. It's about testing as well. I think a lot of companies, a lot of agency owners, e-com store owners, they expect that let's get an agency in here, let's get them working, let's set up the process, and then they can leave again because it's set up and it's done, right? And I think we both know that's just not the case, because
it's not. In most cases, it's not.
Continuously optimizing your processes, getting that 1% improvement each and every day is crucial if you want to stay relevant, right?
Absolutely. It definitely is.
If you're talking about those kind of processes behind, like after you really post something, after you launched your campaign, what typically comes into mind that you see that they need to put in place, but most of the time that is lacking? What kind of process, how would it look like?
Yeah, so one of the methods that I am really a big fan of is the inbound marketing process. So we're HubSpot certified. We really love that platform for A lot of reasons. I really love that it can bring together the marketing hub, the sales hub, and the service tickets. So depending on the type of business, if they're going to have a lot of customer support issues, for example, like a SaaS product, that could be a really great hub just to have everything that customer is encountering tracked in one place. You can connect your social media channels through there and track your ad performance. You can connect your analytics to your website and really get a more granular view of what's performing. One of my favorite things to really look at in terms of long-term optimization is what content is performing on the website so that you can prioritize the pages that people really care about, make sure that you're including more call to actions to those that are most visited. But you don't really have that unless you're digging into that data to see it. Another example for me is the lead nurturing process. That really needs to be clear. I think that a lot of people believe that that a lead, comes in and that's like the only goal they really have in mind. Like, oh, we have a lead. Okay, so now what do we do? And that's the area where I feel like our team is really good at bringing in some of that expertise in how to process those leads, how to set up sequences to automate some of that, because there is a truth in that scalability has to be considered. I understand that you may not have, a team of salespeople who can follow up individually with every single lead constantly as they're coming in. And that may be a waste of time if they're not qualified yet. So during that process in the nurturing, if you're using something like HubSpot or another CRM, you're able to qualify those leads a bit more before they get handed off to the sales team. And I think that's really important that you go through that qualification process. It saves everyone time in the long run. You're going to get lots of people who are coming in as leads that aren't qualified at all. Some of them will even just be junk leads, So you really want to have a way to track that and automate that side of the process, the kind of the sorting through the leads, and then setting up things like scoring rules and grading to evaluate, are they really ready to go to sales or not? That's like a really common, gripe from the sales team when dealing with marketing is, hey, these leads aren't qualified at all. You're wasting all of our time. So by instituting a process early to qualify those leads, and you can do that by tracking activities like they downloaded this white paper, they came and requested a demo. Of course, someone who's requesting a demo is much more qualified than someone who just downloaded one white paper. So you can set up rules that really help you prioritize those leads a bit better for that handoff process between marketing and sales. And I think that's a really huge thing. The other thing that I would say that I feel like happens is that also sometimes people do not respond fast enough. I see this pretty commonly where they believe that they've gotten a lead. If someone has taken like a real action that shows interest, there is really no reason why someone should not be following up if it's a qualified action. So if it's a qualified action and you think there is a real potential opportunity there, reach out quickly, because people in today's market are their attention spans are short. So you want to capture the attention while you have the interest and build on that. And then you want to remain top of mind with those follow-up messages for the nurturing. And that's the kind of process that we normally set up is, helping you get things sorted and prioritized, helping you establish, sequences that need to be there so that you do have a clear process for nurturing your leads. And then at the end of that journey, making sure that there's a smooth handoff to sales. And at the very, very back end, how do you make those customers your fans, the people that will go out and share that word of mouth about your company? And so we take you all the way through the end of the funnel and say, how do we delight your customers and build loyalty and retention at the end? I think that the whole buyer's journey is important. And unless you're looking at it from end to end, you're definitely missing parts of the picture.
Yeah, that's amazing. And indeed, it's more than just a couple of touch points that you have to create. It's looking at the whole process. It's mapping it out from the beginning until the end, the whole buyer's journey. Indeed, you need to have something in place for every stage.
Exactly.
It's important as well, because not only for the companies that you're serving, but I guess for your own company as well to have this in place, because it saves costs, right?
Absolutely.
Because it saves cost. Why? Because you don't have to waste time on people that will not buy anyway.
Mm-hmm.
How much
Exactly.
how much do you think, like in a percentage, could a company or an agency, anybody who does like this kind of a lead generation and sales and stuff like that, how much can they save in costs?
Oh my gosh, it's really thousands, at least, depending on the scale and size of the company. I've seen huge benefits to our customers in terms of savings on processes, but also on the continual optimization, that A/B testing, and just trying to continually get that, improvement over time. They're also getting such a better return on investment from their marketing budgets. And I think that's really important, is that limited resources is something that I think every company encounters at some point or another. And also just responsible resource management and budget management should always be a priority for any company that's trying to be profitable. So when we look at that in terms of, optimizing the revenue and optimizing your costs, that's something that I think a clear process, really strong strategy, and that continual A/B testing can really make such huge differences over time. One of the biggest examples I can give you, we did a campaign with Bayer and Mayo Clinic a couple of years back. We did 6 campaigns actually that year for them. And we were able to take their results compared to the previous agency for a social media ad campaign. And we saved them over $1.2 million in ad spend over the course of that year by A/B testing. We drove costs down on the clicks while increasing the engagements on the other end. So it was a huge win-win. Not only did they get a better return on the investment, but they actually saved a budget at the end of the year while getting more leads at the end. So I can't recommend continual optimization enough. That's like our agency motto is literally always be optimizing. And that's just because I see that continual value delivered time after time from approaching things that way.
Would you say that it also helped your own agency to scale and grow faster than others?
100%. I think that really having a clear vision when I came into founding Dulci Digital was so important, because we really wanted to set ourselves apart. I really began this because I saw a lot of opportunity in the market. Having been in all the seats in the marketing department, like we talked about earlier, and also having been part of roles where I was in an agency versus in-house, freelancing even at different points in my career, I've kind of been around the whole gambit. And looking at that, there are problems that each entity encounters, whether you're in-house, an agency, or a freelancer. There are challenges that you face working with others in this industry from every side. And I really just felt like having the perspective that I was able to gain from those roles, that there had to be a better way, and that started with the processes first. So whenever we started Dulci Digital, we really wanted to be scalable. We wanted to be lean and agile. We wanted to be ready to adapt to not only the market today, but the market in the future, and always ready to make those shifts quickly and easily as we needed to. And so our model being fully remote from day one saved us tons in overhead. That was something that we were able to pass on as savings to our clients. Our streamlined processes also help us manage to have some of the fastest turnaround times in the industry. And I think that's hugely important for people who have deadlines on their end. The other thing that we do differently than some agencies is that we have 24/7 collaboration. So every client that we serve has basically a workspace and a dashboard for all projects managed with us that's hosted on the cloud. So they can see real-time access anytime they want to on any projects that we're working on them with. We can directly coordinate feedback on designs and iterations and revisions right there within the platform. And I really think that has helped set us apart in a lot of ways and helped propel our growth, just because we really are focused on that customer first approach, increasing that collaboration, and then just remaining really flexible and adaptable for whatever needs exist in the market and for our customers. The final part about that, I think, that really helps us is that we also have very flexible terms in terms of our plans. It's very clear and straightforward if they want to come in and start with a package with us. We have very clear, transparent pricing already posted on the website, a very simple checkout process for them if they have basic needs. And we have a really clear discovery process if they want to do something larger or more complex. But ultimately, every strategy that we come to is going to be as unique as the business that we serve. So we don't have like a one size fits all kind of mindset. We always want to customize every solution that we create based specifically on what our client needs most. And I think that really helps set us apart in the end.
If people hear you say that, I think a lot of agencies would say, "Oh my God, Megan, that sounds like so much work. That's just not doable to bring like a customized service each and every time for a specific customer. If you have to change all of this, would you say that bringing in the agile principles and being more specific, like being able to adapt to change in a way that it is not as that it won't create more work actually?
It doesn't.
How can you explain this in a simple way to other agencies?
Sure.
That this doesn't bring more work, it actually brings better value for the customer?
It does. So for me, I really think that because we have so many of our other processes streamlined and automated that are like very simple tasks, we also have very clear project guidelines. So every time we have a new project, we are not recreating the wheel. It's not that. It's that we have taken the time to template everything that we could possibly think of in our project management software. So when a new project comes in, all we're going to do is go in and customize that template that's already made. It's ready to go. So we're not like creating this process from scratch every time we do it. We are really just utilizing kind of the foundational building blocks that we already have, and then tweaking that based on what the customer needs in the end. It works very well for us and for our customer because we're going to be able to deliver exactly what they need when they need it on demand. And they are going to be able to collaborate with us through that process very quickly and easily. That's one of the things that I think agencies struggle with is the feedback loop with the customer. And so by having this shared workspace with them and everything being hosted on the cloud, it really does improve that response time from our customers as well. Once they can see their real-time impact and how if they don't respond, it slows things down, I think they start naturally adapting to that and saying, oh, wow, I'm holding them up. It's not them, it's me. And so I think that transparency really helps both sides.
Absolutely, 100% agree. This is a topic that's so relevant in these days as well. Being remote doesn't make it easier to communicate with your customers or with your team, but having a clear internal and external communication structure, a structured communication model is so huge to be able to respond to your customers in a good way and not wasting time and not having bad expectations about it. Because just imagine if you do not have this kind of a model, if you do not have this platform that allows this quick collaboration and communication, a lot of times, and I see this with a lot of agencies, at the end of the road, they deliver something to the customer and the customer says, oh, but wait a minute, I didn't ask for that.
Right.
This isn't good. And usually that kind of communication is done through mail, even worse, you know. So it blows my mind actually that not everybody within the agency world is just using structured communication to make sure that this doesn't happen.
I agree. And that was really one of the things that just stood out to me, because I've also collaborated with a lot of agencies. Excuse me. Oh, excuse me. I'm so sorry. I had a cough there. Yeah, I've collaborated with several agencies as well. And the communication piece is one of the most common challenges that we ran into. Like throughout my career, whether it was in-house with a team or with a freelancer, the communication was the place where breakdowns usually happened. So we just really took that into consideration and prioritized that from day one. Like, how can we solve for this problem and prevent those inevitable holdups that come whenever you have miscommunications? And so by building our platform the way that we have, and then training our clients when they come on board with us on how to use the platform, like during their onboarding call, we're going to go through and give them a full tour of the software and how it works and how they're able to collaborate with our team there. Some people take a little bit more time than others to get used to the platform because it's different. But once they do, it is almost always something that people are just raving about by the time it's done, because they were able to really explicitly see what was happening and be able to put their input in along the way, so that what is coming out at the end of that journey is really what they wanted and what the vision was. So I really feel like that's the other piece that is so important, is that we really can deliver what they want because they're able to collaborate in such a clear and effective way with us.
Would you say that this is one of the biggest roadblocks for any company to be able to keep growing, is the communication part?
Absolutely. I think that in terms of internal and external communication, both are really key to growth, because you have your internal stakeholders, your team, your employees, who really need to be able to understand expectations, understand the impact that they're making and the role that they have to play in the overall picture. And I think that it's also really important that teams be able to, collaborate in a way that is effective for them. Not every team is going to function similarly to one another. So I really think that companies need to think about how they are approaching some of the, I'm just going to say it, I think some of the outdated approaches to kind of these like one size fits all rules, systems, and also styles of communication, really allowing a little bit more creativity to come into play, allowing people to help solve their own problems from the team level, from the lower level. I think that that's really key. So many times I see that in companies we work with, there's like a really big disconnect from the top down, where the vision at the top and the vision at the bottom of the company are very, very different from one another. The leadership has certain objectives and goals in mind, but the people on the bottom are the ones who are, in the trenches doing this work day in and day out, and their opinions are valuable. They're the ones experiencing a lot of the problems. And a lot of times you just don't see that open communication going back and forth, depending on hierarchies and, again, it's kind of like old mindsets where you have to report to this person and to that person. I really think that consensus building and group talks and, brainstorming sessions where more than one group of people are making the decisions for everyone. I think that it's really, really a great idea for the future for people to be more inclusive with the teams from every facet of the business. Like, everyone has an opinion. You would be surprised, like some of the meetings that we were able to take insights away from, where like sales and marketing being siloed, for example, is a huge, huge barrier for a lot of companies. And it's almost as if they're competing. If you have a sales team and a marketing team that feel like they're more in competition than, working towards the same goal, that's going to create a lot of conflict internally. So I really think that understanding those silos and that old way of thinking needs to be replaced with a more adaptive solution, one that's going to be a lot more open, where the lines dissolve a bit more to a holistic approach is really, really key. And being able to translate your message externally then to your customer is going to be easier, because your stakeholders are all going to be on the same page. So that the journey that they have with, say, the customer service and the sales team and the marketing team is a lot more consistent, rather than it feeling like, oh, I loved the marketing people or the salespeople, but my customer support journey was awful. You know, if you have that vision from end to end and you have that communication from end to end, and you're thinking about the buyer in that journey through everyone's perspective and how they interact with them, you're going to be able to solve for some of those problems sooner.
100%, absolutely. I love what you're talking about, Megan. And I think with others that are listening and that are looking at this is the question that raises is, okay, Megan, this sounds awesome. We need to do this, but we're just a small company. How would you organize this practically? How would we do this? Like within Dulci Digital, how do you go about this, making sure that the communication, especially like the internal communication, is on point, so you bring an aligned message to your customer? How do you do that?
Yeah. So one of the things that's a very big part of our services is the consultation side. So when it comes to companies who really need just that extra set of eyes that can come in from the outside perspective, it's always easier, I say this, for someone outside the industry and outside your organization to help diagnose your problems, because we become blind in our own organization sometimes. Like, you know, we've always done things this way, or whatever other mindsets kind of gets set up over time. They may be hindrances that they're just not aware of because it's become the status quo for them. So whenever we come in with that fresh set of eyes, we can really look at things from that broader perspective, from the outsider's view, and say, okay, where is it, you know, that we're having problems? We have like a very deep discovery process where we'll go through and we'll not only talk with leadership, but we'll talk with, you know, each department if they want that. If we're trying to do an internal strategy, for example, on communications, we'll talk to each department and we'll see, okay, we'll survey, you know, what are the challenges that you're facing, you know, really digging into those questions to get to the bottom of the root issues, and where there seems to be breakdowns in the communication along the way. The other thing that we do is outlining that buyer's journey. A lot of people feel overwhelmed by the idea of trying to map that from end to end. And, you know, definitely given that if marketing is not their, you know, their expertise, that makes sense, because it's something that you really need to have a very clear perspective on from the marketing end to understand how these touch points are going to impact that customer journey. But you also have to then go in and get the feedback with each team, because all of them have an impact as well. And you want to build that out from basically from A to Z. You know, what would someone do once they've purchased a product from you? What is that journey like on that end? If someone is just learning about you, what is it process coming in? And then, you know, in the middle, what happens in between? Are they reading your social media posts? Are they coming in, you know, reading your blog? Do they download a newsletter, or sign up for a newsletter rather? Looking at all those touch points along the way and mapping that journey is a big part of the value that we can add, so that then you can diagnose, these are the places that we're having drop-offs. Like, oh, we have lots of people who are coming into the top of the funnel, but we can't get them through the middle. You know, well, why is that? And you can diagnose that when you dig into the data and really look at that journey at a more granular level. And that's one of the things that we can help them do. And then beyond that, at the end, we always have like a roadmap to success. So we'll come in, we'll do discovery. We're going to map out the process internally and externally with the channels. And then we're also going to give you our recommendations at the end on how you can actually implement these changes within your organization, so that you can take that as a playbook and then just run with it. That's really ultimately our goal, is to empower and enable our clients to do these things for themselves in the end. Like, our agency is a great partner, but some of these things, when it comes to internal things, they're going to have to be the stakeholders there. So we just want to give them all the tools and resources that they need to make that successful.
And besides those kind of really tactical things, what else do you what else do you give as an advice to the customers in terms of how to make sure that they live by the principles of continuously improving and testing and making sure to adapting to change? What are the core things that you give them?
Yeah, so I really think that one of the biggest things that people need to continue to think about in terms of adaptability or flexibility for the market going forward is really being prepared with those streamlined systems up front. The more smooth your processes are and the more aligned your people are to begin with, the easier it is going to be to make those shifts as they come up. I really feel like whenever we come in, it's about setting those baselines. Once you have the foundation there for, more lean and agile thinking, we can train them on, some of those aspects as well. If they don't have that in their leadership team currently, we can come in and do that and help them from that level. We also do a lot of team trainings and one-on-one sessions as well. So depending on their needs and their size of the company, we can really customize solutions to give them all those tools and resources that they need to really think more on a lean and agile, scale. And then also, again, giving them that playbook that they're going to be able to take with the real world, advice and actionable steps in order to fix some of those processes. In the end, after all that's done, the next part for the continual improvement is really going to have to come down to whether or not they want to continue to do that internally, or if they would like the option to continue to work with us and we can handle that for them. So whenever we say always be optimizing, that's really one of the main roles that we serve for the clients that we work with, is that once we become a partner, we really like to build a long-term relationship and be that one who's there for you to help you grow through those stages, help you scale, and help you face those challenges as they come up. In scaling a marketing program, because that's something that a lot of companies really, really struggle with. And it's not something that is necessarily easily just taught. Like it's a lot of it comes back down to the experience and intuition and insights that we have internally with our team because of our years of experience. So if you don't have that resource internally and you need someone who is a systems-minded thinker who's going to really help you continually improve that, that's where we really come in and shine for our customers.
That's great. That's great. And I think this is also why your company is really seen as one of the more, how will I say, one of the better ones in that regard, that is really growing pretty quickly. What is for the future of Dulci Digital? What do you foresee? What is the next couple of months? How does it look like for you?
Yeah, so right now we are kind of at capacity in terms of our current projects. We've gotten really busy this year, which is a great problem to have. And we're actually at a point where we're scaling again and looking to bring on a couple more people in our team right now. And ultimately just very, very excited about where things are going. We have just had enormous response to our process. And not only our process, but I think our customer service, because we really have that in the front of our mind and everything that we do. We have had a really, really great reception in our local market and also really in the national market as we roll things out on a larger scale. And so we're just, excited to keep taking it to the next level.
So I always ask this kind of in every episode to my guests, like, what does growth mean for you?
Sure. So a few things. I think that in terms of growth, one of the things that we look at is the maturity of our process. I believe that as the company evolves, growth is not only about the bottom line, which is always an important thing to consider, but I also like to think about the impact that we have on our community and the people that we serve. So growth in my mind is also tied to, whether or not we're making the kind of impacts that we want to in the community. And I think that as we've been able to scale this past year, I was really excited to be able to work with a lot of minority and women-owned businesses and offer some free trainings to them through, our really through our growth that was able to fund some of those more pro bono type activities. And that was really, really exciting for me. So I want to think about both. I think that at the end of the day, small business owners in particular are kind of like the lifeblood of at least the American economy. And I feel like that's probably very true globally as well. So really being able to empower business owners is ultimately a very big part of our mission. And anytime we've been able to have that impact and help others grow, I consider that part of our growth as well, because we are making that impact not only ourselves, but all the other lives that company will touch as well. And so that's kind of how I measure success ultimately is how successful are we making everyone else. That's what success feels like to me.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And that's a great way to end our conversation here.
Great.
Megan, I think that's a great vision to have. And having that growth mindset, having that continuous improvement mindset is also something we advocate to our customers within our program. So it's great to talk to like-minded people about this.
Yeah.
And let's all keep growing, right? Let's all keep
Absolutely
doing this. So yeah, I want to thank you again, Megan, to be on our show, for your time, for your expertise, and your advice here. And yeah, let's keep in touch, and let's see for the future.
Sounds great. Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Megan. See you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.